Welcome everybody to the Next Possession Sports Podcast. I am one of your co-hosts. My name is Bradley Hayes.
I'm Kamal Shaw.
I'm Vinny Brooks.
And if you caught our first two episodes on a previously named podcast called the Double Move Podcast, you've heard my voice and Kamal's voice, and you'll be starting to hear Vendell and seeing Vendell hopefully a lot more going forward. But we did decide to change the name up. Kamal, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we thought Next Possession was more marketable, had a really unique sound, and we just wanted to make sure that we have a staple in the podcast industry as we're moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. It was super original. There, we thought our last one was an original name. Turned out to be not quite so. So we just wanted to kind of rebrand real quick in the genesis stages of this podcast moving forward. But enough of all of that. Let's get into what you guys are really here for, talking sports. We put a poll up on our Facebook page, which is or our Facebook group, which is Next Possession Sports. You can go follow us on Facebook. And we were just talking about Jadeveon Clowney. He's obviously the biggest name out there still on the market. And we put a poll out there to see, what did everybody think his best landing spot would be. And I have the results here from the Facebook poll. So I listed a few teams. They said Seattle Seahawks, Philadelphia Eagles, Cleveland Browns. You had that shirt on, right? Detroit Lions, New York Jets, New York Giants, Tennessee Titans, and then other. So you can click one of the people I named. You could click other and mention who you felt would have been the best landing spot. Surprisingly, the leading team from the poll were the New York Giants. They got about 38% of the votes. Philadelphia Eagles came in second. I'm sorry. Seattle Seahawks came in second with about 31%. And then the rest kind of all Philadelphia Eagles received a few votes. The Indianapolis Colts and the Cleveland Browns as well.
Yeah.
So I just want to, get your guys' take. Do you guys agree with the poll? For the fans, do you guys feel that there's another a better spot for Jadeveon Clowney to land at? Kamal, I'll kick it to you.
Well, I'm gonna speak on the Eagles. Probably a year ago, I probably wanted to see this. He was on the market talking about being traded. But to be honest, I don't see this happening. It'd be a luxury for us. We need extra pass rush, some depth, but I don't see us with his price tag coming in because Jim Schwartz really loves Derek Barnett, and so does the rest of the Eagles organization. Especially he's a first-round draft pick as well. And though he has some injuries, he still has played well when he's been on the field. So I think they're looking for more continuity, trying to get more out of Derek Barnett instead of putting money into Jadeveon Clowney. Now his skill set would translate really well into our scheme, but I don't see this happening unless he comes down drastically on a price tag.
So before you get to who you think he should go to, I have to ask, myself being a Cowboys fan, as everybody knows, and also being in the Philadelphia market, for the Philadelphia area, right? I hear a lot of the Philadelphia fans chatting. And when the Seattle Seahawks last played the Philadelphia Eagles, Jadeveon Clowney laid a hit on your quarterback, Carson Wentz, which forced him to go out. I'm not saying you feel this way. There's a lot of Eagles fans who feel like that was a dirty hit and was calling him a dirty player, the whole nine. Now he's a free agent. Now we all know if you were to sign the Eagles today, those same Eagles fans would be the one saying he's the greatest defensive end since Reggie White, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
But do you think that plays a role and does that play a role in it for you, the hit on Wentz and having him in that locker room?
If you ask me the day after the playoff game, yes. But now that I've had months to calm down, no. I think if Carson Wentz, the leader of the team, can forgive a player and bring him into the locker room, who's the ultimate leader of the locker room is the quarterback, I think everybody else will just fall right along with it. And the fan base, like you said, well, we hate him today. If we sign him tomorrow and say we got him for $3 million, I know that's not happening. But say that happened, Yes, we be saying we had the best D line in the league. We'll be talking about Philadelphia sports radios will be going crazy about how they got double team 4 of our offensive and defensive linemen. So, that's for me. No, I just think from next year, even though Howie Roseman is a magician with the cap, next year we're predicted to be $50 million over the cap, and so with $23 million in carryover, I don't see that happening right now.
Right. No, definitely. And he is looking for a long-term deal. He's not looking for a one-year deal, at least at this point. We'll see if things change. So where do you think would be his best landing spot in your eyes?
I'm gonna say one that I don't think is on there. Now, this team has been in a rumor of inquiring about him and touching base with him, and they have this one weak spot in their defense, and I think that's the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, I heard that name also acquiring about him, and that's a team where I actually left them off the poll on purpose to see if they would get written in, and not to maybe give the carrot out there to people, because people who maybe not follow to just say, oh, Baltimore, everyone knows Lamar Jackson, that team. I just think that there's when you start winning, you are gaining new fans. You got an electric quarterback. So I could easily see that Baltimore winning the poll. That's why I kind of kept that others comment there. But I mean, that's a team. You talk about what they have on the offense. That their defense, they definitely updated. But to be able to add him on defense, and especially when stopping the run was their weak point, especially in the playoffs, and Clowney is one of the best defensive ends against the run, that would be a big fit. Vindell, what do you think?
I mean, I guess for me. And I was going to say, Kamal, I agree with that. The Ravens is a perfect fit if you're talking about still having him stand up, because they're still doing 3-4. And so put his hand in the ground, but I also see how successful he's been when he was in Houston and 3-4. I kind of like the Colts as a fit, and the reason why I say the Colts as a fit is because you got Darius Leonard there. He's anchoring the defense, and Jadeveon Clowney, there's right now opposite Justin Houston, there's no other defensive end, but you can switch him in and out. They actually have a hybrid defense. A lot of times they also bring up the strong safety Malik Hooker. He can come in and play in the box as well, and they have a different hybrid defense. So they're not always just going to be in the 3-4. I just kind of want to see him on turf again. When he was in Houston, it's kind of similar. It's a dome. He had his best years there. Now in Seattle, he had his hand in the ground, and I liked it. He kind of reminds me a lot of how Julius Peppers wanted to be, intrigued by. That's why he left to go to Chicago and he left to go to Green Bay. He wanted to stand up and kind of extend his career. But I'm interested to see him going into a turf kind of team. I like Indianapolis for that. I just think they got a young nucleus there. I think they got a good defense there, and they can build on that as well. And Darius Leonard is already the leader in that defense. He doesn't have to come in and try to be something he's not. When he was in Houston, you already had J.J. Watt. When you went to Seattle, you had Bobby Wagner. If you go over here, you can still play your role, be that dominant defensive end, outside linebacker you can be, and just plug and play, and play on the opposite side of some great players there too. So I kind of like the Colts.
The Colts would definitely be like I said, a good squad. I mean, it also would give him the incentive to play his former team twice a year, which I know a lot of free agents love that. And they
got a cap space too.
They do.
Yeah, like I said, they definitely got the cap space. They signed Phillip Rivers, so you would think that they're in a win now situation. So why not bring in somebody like Clowney? To me, I think the two teams that could benefit most from him would be either Cleveland or the Tennessee Titans.
Man, that's crazy. Cleveland.
I mean, Cleveland just putting him opposite of Myles Garrett, and obviously what they have with the rest of that defensive front, but that would just be crazy in itself. And Tennessee, they could definitely use a defensive end. And right now, you don't know if Tennessee was just a one-year wonder. You don't know what kind of play they're going to get again from Ryan Tannehill. That's a division that is definitely up for the takings. So to be able to add somebody like Clowney and just and to bolster that defense to go for another run, I think will be a big fit for Vrabel down there. But like I said, I think at the end of the day, it's all going to come down to the money talk in that contract. He seems to be holding out for a certain price.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I want to touch on something both of y'all said. I think the familiarity with Vrabel, because Vrabel was his position coach when he was in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
And also in the polls, I did vote for the Colts because I like the pairing of him and DeForest Buckner.
Yeah.
But it does come down to that contract.
Yeah, man.
And since we talk about contracts, Dak
Prescott. So there was a lot of rumors floating around last week that the Cowboys offered him a contract, I think 5 years, $175 million, which breaks down to be $35 a year. And the first rumor was that Dak had turned that contract down and was countering, saying that he wanted $45 million or more in the last year of his contract. So that rumor went on for about 12 hours to a day before Schefter came out and said that that was false, that there was no denial from Dak Prescott's side. But I kind of wanted to speak on the contract talk in general. Y'all know I'm a Cowboys fan. Y'all know I'm a Dak fan. The Cowboys have handled this situation terribly. I told people, anybody who's talked to me knows that I was pounding the table for him to get signed 2 years ago. I was pounding the table for him to get signed last offseason before Carson Wentz got his deal, before Goff got his deal, before Russell Wilson got his deal. And as every time we would see one more quarterback get signed last year, I kept saying the price of Dak's going up. The price of Dak is going up. I think a while ago you would have been able to get Dak for $30 million. For $30 million a year if you signed him early enough. But you drag your feet, and unlike the other two quarterbacks from his draft class, Jared Goff and Carson Wentz, Dak was a fourth-round quarterback. Dak does not have that fifth-year option that a team can add on. So what those other teams were able to do when they were able to extend their quarterbacks, they picked up the option first and then added the 5 years on, and it makes that money disappear a lot better, and it's even more evenly distributed. It doesn't hurt the cap quite as much. But now you wait until your quarterback does not have a contract to try to now negotiate. You let all the other people sign first, and like anything else in the NFL, it's all about timing when you sign. We've seen every quarterback in the league sign a deal and basically become the new highest paid quarterback, whether they were the best quarterback or not. And it's really just based on what year they signed, because if someone signs last year and now here comes this other quarterback a year from now, the cap goes up. So when cap space goes up, that quarterback can that percentage of quarterback is taken to the cap now comes back as being worth a little bit more. So you want to sign that quarterback earlier on, and we messed up this deal completely. And now I fear that we're gonna that we messed it up once, we messed it up 2 or 3 times already, and I feel like we're going to mess it up again. Dak and the Cowboys are seen to be stuck on this 4-year versus 5-year thing. Dak wants a 4-year deal, which makes sense. You know, he's a young quarterback. He didn't get that. He wasn't obviously a highly paid quarterback through his first 4 years. He's probably the most underpaid quarterback or player in the NFL.
Yeah, he is.
He wants that 4-year deal so he can get a second big contract earlier.
Correct.
You know, so he's basically betting on himself. Give me the 4, and I can turn that into another 4-year deal later down the line. The Cowboys want to do 5 to hold him for a little bit longer at a smaller rate, because they know 5 years from now that cap is going to be way higher. And if we get that 5th year, get that 5th year in this negotiation, it's going to be a lot better than year 1 in the new one. So that's, I think, where a lot of the give and pull is at. Is I guess to see who's going to fold over their side. Is Dallas going to be willing to come down to 4 years? Is Dak going to be willing to take what Dallas is offering with 5? I think the problem is you have a quarterback this year. We talked about Kirk Cousins, who just signed his extension, and with his extension, while his last year is not guaranteed, he signed a 2-year extension. But while that 2022 season is not guaranteed at all, that year he's making $35 million in base salary, another $10 million from his signing bonus. So he's going to be a $45 million cap hit for the Vikings if they were to keep him in 2022. Right. So if you're Dak and you see Kirk Cousins has that deal for 2022, why wouldn't you ask $45 million
Right.
in year 5 from now, when you're seeing a quarterback basically already has that cap hit in 2 years. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, the Cowboys backed themselves in a corner. Dak has the leverage, and at this point, it wouldn't surprise me if it went all the way out. Dak signs the tender, the franchise tag, plays on this year, and actually waits for Pat Mahomes and Deshaun Watson to sign their deal. And now he can go back and ask for even more money because we know Mahomes is going to blow the roof off
200. He's going to be a $200 million man.
He's going to be the first $200 million quarterback.
Yeah.
And then Watson is going to get somewhere in between what he's getting and what Russell Wilson signed at. And at this point, if you're Dak, now that just raises your floor. So, like I said, it's just a terrible situation. I can't wait for it to be done as a fan. But as someone who likes to talk sports, it keeps stories out there every day. So you'll probably see more rumors and stuff like that float from all these people, ESPN and everything, because they need people to keep clicking that website.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, Stephen A. Smith talked about something. He actually did it on Will Cain's show. And because Will Cain is a really big Dallas Cowboys fan, he doesn't apologize about it. And of course, Stephen A. Smith does not apologize about talking about the Cowboys.
Yep.
But one thing he did say he advocated was that Jerry Jones was his man. So, like, he was like, I like him, I respect him, I go out with him and Stephen Jones all the time. However, if this quarterback looked different, if this quarterback looked like Tony Romo, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And I think that's what's sad. I think that Dak Prescott has done enough that he should have been got his money. I'm not saying that your linebacker, who number 54 from Notre Dame,
Jalen Smith.
Yeah, I'm not saying Jalen Smith shouldn't have got his money. I'm not saying that. No one else should have got their money. If you have a quarterback, you're a franchise player, you pay him first. And it's not even about saying the wrong message. It's just that is the leader of your football team. That's the most important position and you can argue in sports. And you can also say that he is the most marketable position of the most marketable team in sports in the world. You pay that man, period. You don't ask any questions. You cut the check. And like you said, Brad, to your point, you cut it now because it's going to cost you more later if you don't cut it now. There's no reason why they shouldn't have paid him by now. And Stephen A. Smith had just simply said, basically that, if he looked different, he would have got paid. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't like doing that race card stuff, but I'm going to tell you, I think it's – if it's another team, maybe he gets a check. But for some reason, I don't know, man. I don't know why in Dallas you don't want to cut that check. So
the Cowboys found themselves in a great problem to have. The issue is how they handled the problem. The Cowboys have drafted well over the past couple of years. So you have a DeMarcus Lawrence that was coming up, a year or two ago for a contract. You had Jalen Smith, who was now due for a contract. You have Ezekiel Elliott and Amari Cooper. You have Dak Prescott. So you have all these people who all had to get paid at the same time. So that shows you're doing something right, but it's how you handle it. It's all in how it gets handled. And with DeMarcus Lawrence, that was handled poorly. The year before he actually got his contract, he wanted I think 15 or 16 million a year. The Cowboys told him no. What happens next? Khalil Mack gets traded and signs a huge contract. Aaron Donald holds out, and before the holdout even starts, signs a huge contract. And instead of signing DeMarcus Lawrence right before those contracts went, they weren't able to read what was coming ahead. And now he actually signed for about $20 million a year, all said and done. So you give up $5 million because you didn't want to give into his price early on, and it actually cost you in the long run. And it's the same thing happening again with Dak Prescott. If they get this deal done earlier, it wouldn't have been a problem. So, but we're here, and eventually this whole Dak thing will be behind everybody. But you would think, especially with bringing in a new coach, especially an offensive guy, that you want that quarterback coaching situation to be able to get started right away so he can start learning that system and everything. I know Kellen Moore is still there. He's supposed to be calling plays, but Mike McCarthy is going to have his whole hand in that blueprint of how the offense is going.
Yeah, I think you touched on Kirk Cousins, and I think this could end up in a Kirk Cousins situation like when he was in Washington. Franchise tag him 1 year, next year franchise again. And like you said with DeMarcus Lawrence, I mean, like it's all about timing.
Mm-hmm.
no matter what position you win. It's Carson and Jared Goff, and his ceiling is going to be whatever Deshaun Watson gets. I mean, it's hard for anybody to argue with the same contract as Patrick Mahomes. I mean, that.
Yeah, no. Like no one expects if no one expects if Patrick Mahomes was to sign tomorrow that Dak is going to sign for the same thing Pat Mahomes is getting. No one expects that, but at the end of the day, it raised the floor up.
Yeah, and I wasn't making an argument, but it was like between whatever Deshaun Watson going to get and whatever Carson Wentz already has, and that's Deshaun Watson isn't signed yet. Say handled this poorly. It seems like that the Cowboys keep dragging this out, and it's kind of like all these buts. It's like but you can't do this. You can't. I mean, we've seen Dak without Zeke. We've seen Dak without Mark. We've seen Dak, and like they. And it seems like he's a product of he has to have everything perfect around. That's me as a Eagles fan looking at it that way. But it's kind of like using all these excuses not to pay him. Mm-hmm. And that rumor that came out when he won a 45 minute last year, to me, I think there is some truth with that because if you look at what they in 5 years, that could be 30 years old. And that's still really young for a quarterback. When quarterbacks are paying to like 37, 38 years old. And so I think that's pretty. I think that's a pretty good range, even if he did ask for that in that final year. But also, and around that time, that's what the top quarterback is going to be getting paid. And I'm pretty sure Dak believes himself just like any player should. That year 5, he's going to be top of the game, and that he should be getting $45 million. And whoever getting paid around that time, because Baker Mayfield contract going to be due around that time, I'm pretty sure he's going to be like, look, I didn't get paid just much because I'm better than him.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like that they keep trying to drag this out because it's kind of like once the Cowboys win the Super Bowl, like they're thinking in their mind, once they win the Super Bowl, of course I disagree with that, but like once they win the Super Bowl, then we can blow everything up because it's a lot of young players coming that still need to get paid. We're gonna let them go. We're gonna let them test free. We're gonna trade this person. Then we could pay him and shape our organization like the Seahawks have their organization right now.
All right, so that wraps up our Dak talk. We can talk Dak and Cowboys all day, but Kamel, I know you had a more serious topic we wanted to get to next.
Yeah, so the NFL came out with adjustments to the Rooney Rule, and for those of you who are listening, the Rooney Rule is something that was put in place by the Fritz Plowder Alliance to get more minority head coaches into head coaching roles. So the previous Rooney Rule was that you had to interview at least one minority head coaching candidate. Mm-hmm. The adjustments is now that you have to interview 2 outside. And so for example, outside wasn't in play before. It can just be any minority candidate. I'll take it back to 2016 when the Eagles hired Doug Peterson. The week prior to, or even a few days prior to hiring Doug Peterson, they interviewed the running back coach, Deuce Staley, and then a few days later just hired Doug Peterson. So they already knew who they wanted. Mm-hmm. And so now you have to interview 2 outside. You can still interview anybody inside your organization. That just won't go towards your quota. You just have to meet I hate to use quota as the word, but that's pretty much what it is right now. And so you have
exactly. That's the way it's being used currently.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so now you have to interview 2 outside candidates to meet your outside candidate quota. And there wasn't one in place before for coordinators. So offense coordinator, defense coordinator, special teams coordinator. So now you have to interview at least one outside. To touch on, and they put this in there, which isn't directed at the Rooney Rule, which is kind of confusing me. But however, you do have, like, they can no longer block a coordinator or a position coach to interview for like another team coordinator or a head coach position job. Another position coach interview for a coordinator job. Prior to this, they could. Also, as far as executives, so like GM, team operations, team president, all the way down to HR, you have to interview at least one. Each team has established a minority coaching fellowship program that can be 1-2 years in length. So this is designed so that former players, minority and female coaching candidates can get hands-on experience prior to that, because people always want you to have experience before you have the opportunity to get experience. Mm-hmm. And so a proposal that got tabled, so we don't know if it's going to pass or not, is that if you hire a minority head coach, your third round pick will jump 6 to 10 spots. So, Vendell, tell me how you feeling about that, man.
I mean, so like I said, I know we talked about this off camera, and so I'm glad we're talking about this a little bit now. It's been a lot of chatter about it. NFL executive insider, what's our guy name from ESPN?
Schefter?
No, not Schefter. The black gentleman.
Rap sheet?
No.
Louis Riddick.
Louis Riddick, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Louis Riddick has been very passionate about this subject. A lot of people don't know that, and it came to light a lot of that. Sage Steele, who's very supportive of him, they had a really long banter, and I appreciated the transparency between the two of them, because he has actually been an NFL, front office guy, but he's not been able to be considered for a general manager position. He even written to great detail to describe his most recent opportunity to try to be a GM before David Gettleman got the position in New York for the New York Giants position. He even said it, when he walked in the room, he knew that they already didn't want to consider him. Even though this man has had a lot of experience and all these things, you can't look them in the eye and show them what you can offer, because they've already made a decision based upon, like you said, you get treated as a quota. And so now for me, as I look at this incentive plan, you're saying to people, hey, let's go ahead and just bribe you, because that's what it is to me. It's a bribe, to bribe owners to consider, actually not just consider giving an opportunity for an interview, but to actually get this guy in, and let's get him a position, whether it's a head coach or whether it's a GM, and we're going to get something out of it. We're going to get some picks out of it at a higher rate. And then if it doesn't work out, you know what? We got some good players. I think it's a shame. 70% of the NFL looks like those of us on this podcast, African-American. There are only 3 head coaches that are African-American. Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh, Anthony Lynn in Los Angeles, and most recently for the Dolphins, Brian Flores. Yeah. And so, and then if you want to consider another minority, Ron Rivera, who is Hispanic descent, he's now the head coach formerly of my Carolina Panthers, but now the Washington Redskins. So you have 4 minorities out of 32 teams. That's ridiculous. And then you have 2 men, most recently the Cleveland Browns. It came out, what's that gentleman's name? I know you know who he is.
Andrew Berry.
And then there's the GM for the Miami Dolphins as well.
That's right.
Yeah. And so you have 2 men now out of 32 teams leading franchises and their personnel to build teams. It makes no sense, man. It's actually a slap in the face. To me, Louis Riddick, he hit the nail on the head when he said, now we're not talking about what I can do on a resume and what my background is. And we're not judging me on my merit. Now you're judging. Now, how do I know that you're really having me here and you're going to consider me? And if you do give me the opportunity, how do I know when you look me in the face you're not doing this because of the compensatory picks or the higher draft picks that you're going to get as a hiring me, as a result of hiring me? It doesn't make any sense. I think it's sickening. I think it's asinine. I think it's deplorable. Any type of Stephen A. Smith adjective you want to add in here, that's what it is. It's utterly ridiculous that in this day and time we're having this discussion. And I heard a podcast today before we came on here from Coach Calipari. He's having something called Coffee with Cal, and he actually had Mike Tomlin. He had Mike Tomlin on there today or yesterday. He got his take on it, and Mike Tomlin was actually different from Louis Riddick. He actually said, "I don't see a problem with it." They're starting a conversation. The problem is we shouldn't be having this conversation, especially you yourself, when you are leading a group of men who majority look like yourself. But when you go out there and you go across that field and whether you win or lose, you're going to look for that person to shake their hand. Only 2 other times you're going to find someone that looks like you if they're on your schedule. Then Ron Rivera. I mean, you only have that's not okay, man. Yeah. That's not a peer group there. That's speaking the wrong message. I think it's saying the wrong thing. The NFL, I get you're trying. I get it.
but you're not doing a good job. When you say we're going to incentivize you to give you better draft status if you give someone a job that should have already gotten the job.
I want to speak to that word you just said. You said trying. My take on the whole situation, and like I said, I agree with a lot of your points. There's not enough diversity within, these front offices, within the league office, to really make a difference or reflect the minority that you see on the field, the diversity you see on the field. You can sit here and say, yes, it's a problem that the league is the way it is, but at least they're addressing it and they know that they have an issue. So that's one way to look at it. And the very first, when I first heard it, I was like, okay, they're acknowledging the issue that they have. We should not be having this issue in 2020, but we have it. They're acknowledging it. That was the first thought that came to my mind. And then as I actually read it, it's a complete slap in the face. The proposal for the whole incentivizing teams to actually hire an eligible candidate, and oftentimes overly eligible. If we simply just want to go to Eric Bieniemy,
yeah,
there's no way in the world that you tell me in a league that's an offensive league right now, every day teams are trying to find the new Sean McVay, the new offensive guy, and you got this offensive coordinator who just won a Super Bowl. The past 2 years has had the best offense in the entire NFL.
Right.
Does not have a head coaching job right now. But from that same team, when they actually weren't even winning playoff games, you have their offensive coordinator who's not a minority get a head coaching job, and it was said that Andy Reid was calling most of those plays. So
right, Doug Peterson, right.
Tell me how that correlates. So
he was in the playoffs.
To me, when now listen, he ended up winning the Super Bowl, and Philly ended up hitting a home run with the pick. They hadn't won a Super Bowl ever before, so it is what it is. But now you're telling me Eric Bieniemy isn't able to get a shot, and I'm sure Patrick Mahomes is on one hand glad to have him back, but also knows that he should be somewhere else as a head coach.
Correct.
And to me, the fact that not only were they trying to incentivize it, the problem to me was that it's an insult. You do a 3rd round pick and think that that's what's going to get a team who's already not hiring eligible candidates now to actually move up, because they can go up 6 to 10 picks. So it's another gesture it's another fake gesture by the NFL, empty gesture by the NFL. That, to me, the same way that they handled some of the concussion stuff, to sit here and say, "Oh, we're trying." This is their way to say, "Hey, at least we're trying," even though they know it's not going to get any true results. But it's something for them to put on paper and say, "Hey, we made an effort." Like, nah.
Yeah.
Not good.
You can miss me with all that. You can miss me with all that.
Yeah. So one thing I'm gonna touch on, because we talked about Eric Bieniemy, and granted, definitely he should definitely be a head coach. And I want to make the comparison of his predecessor and Matt Nagy, and you compare the two of them. Eric Bieniemy has 9 years as a player in the league. Matt Nagy has 8. Matt Nagy has 12 years as experience as a coach before getting a head coaching job. Eric Bieniemy has 19 years. And Matt Nagy, I mean, granted, his team was in the playoffs. They've been in the playoffs the past couple of years, but they did not win the Super Bowl. And he worked closely with Patrick Mahomes. And so, as you said, people looking for the next in the offensive and passing league. I mean, now they're not going, he wasn't the quarterback. Well,
the Carolina Panthers gave Matt Rule a 7-year contract.
Yeah, I'm just about to talk about it.
So
I was just about to talk about it.
It's a lot of different things. Like, it's excuses, but for me, as looking at some of the teams last year who had vacancies, I didn't want to see Eric Bieniemy with any of those teams, because I always root for the black coach to be in a successful situation, and so I didn't want to see him with any of those teams. And as far as, and I think that I'm glad that they tabled that 3rd round pick thing, because honestly, that's a mute point. If you really want to move 6 to 10 spots, you can trade. I mean, depending on like the weight, like the wage, not the wage, but like as far as like the points,
Yeah, the points
you
and all
can
that.
just trade up.
Yeah.
You can trade up 6 to 10 spots,
Listen.
and that costs you maybe like a 5th, 6th, maybe.
No, you know what you can do. You know what you can do.
Depending on the situation.
If you want to move 6 to 10 spots, you can lose the last game of the regular season.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Yeah. So
right.
right.
It's on week 17.
Yeah.
It's on week 17. You can pull your starting quarterback and say, "Hey, I want to see what I got." So
and so no, but I will say, I'm gonna kind of go with Mike Tomlin on this one. I like it because it's one thing you talk about, especially including some of these social justice issues. It's about proximity, and if you look at past Eric Bieniemy, there isn't a lot of coordinators who could be the next one. So once we hire Eric Bieniemy, who's next? I mean, you got Robert Saleh. After that, there's not many people. I mean, you got some positioning coaches around the league, but you really don't know, because granted, actually last 4 years, Duke Staley has interviewed for one position.
Well, and let's be real. Let's be real also. Position coaches that are minorities are not getting head coaching jobs. A minority.
Look at New York. Look at New York.
Correct.
I was going to bring the New York situation. If a minority special teams coordinator will never get a head coaching job, and we just saw obviously what New York just hiring the special team coordinator from the Patriots. Now, obviously, this is not the first special teams coordinator to get a job. We know about Harbaugh in Baltimore, the whole nine, but this guy was extremely out of left field, and we know that a position coach isn't going to get that spot. And I also feel like
correct. Like we've already agreed. Like the reason this is in place is because it's not fair, and so we know like there's a complete double standard, right? There is no position coach making the jump from position coach to head coach. And so I think it is about getting these people just in the room. I mean, we've all been in situations where we're on the other side of the interview, and we had like out of the pool of candidates we've had, and there's been a select candidate like, yo, this guy is definitely, or this guy or woman definitely will come here and knock it out of the park. You get somebody out of nowhere and thinking, oh yeah, we hiring this person. And so sometimes it's about just getting your seat at the table, and like it is about proximity. But honestly, like I do like it because you can have a predetermined and they can honestly go that way as well. But it is just about getting people at the table, and sometimes it really is because honestly, like there is no one's holding anybody accountable, and I think that is the starting point. And granted, it's like either you can do it or you put this in place or you don't have it in place. Regardless, now at least exactly you're actually talking about it. And granted, a lot of time when it comes to even position coaches or coordinators, it's the head coach making the decision. Now, when it comes to the head coach, it's the GM or the owner making the decision. So it's kind of just getting to people in these seats, in each position, or even at the table. And so because they always call for references, and it's like, hey, what do you think about this person? Oh yeah, I think he's a good person. You definitely hired him. So I think as they're addressing more things, and like especially with this social justice reform and everything else, it's about just getting people in relatable. Like Mandel said, 70% of the NFL is African American, and you can't get these coaches to relate to them. Because now the emotional maturity is really coming into play when it comes to head coaches selections. And if you can't get somebody to relate to somebody from a background, because football brings people from all different walks of life. If you can't get somebody to do that, then I think that'll just a little bit harder. Now, I will counter that with it is really hard to tell people to do with their money, especially owners. I mean, there is a reason why there is a quarterback who has been to the Super Bowl who has not been employed for the last 4 years.
Yeah, exactly. Cap. Like, I mean, but and my thing is, like I said, as far as the forcing teams to interview two candidates with outside of the organization, like I said, I do like that, especially because they were already interviewing basically a person they knew. They probably weren't having a real interview. It was probably a casual conversation, but something that they were able to just check the box and say, okay, now that we're done that, now we can go interview the candidates we want. So to bring in now at least two, because with anything, if anytime there's three or more minority candidates interviewing for something, the chance of one of those three actually being hired is increased drastically. So you have that aspect, but the issue is, and to your point, Kamal, you can't make people do what they want to do with their money. And when they're running teams to say, well, I don't think this person is going to be able to get the job done and I want to hire who I want to hire. I don't know. We see a lot of change until a lot of these older people, unfortunately, move away from the teams and whatever form that may be, because there's still a very much the NFL. Warren Moon had to play in the Canadian Football League for a reason, because while African Americans were good enough athletes to play every other position on the field, they weren't smart enough to play quarterback. And if you look at a lot of the coordinators, even you'll see there's more African American defensive coordinators than there are offensive coordinators. And to me that's the same type of mentality that was with quarterbacks. Correct. And even now, like you're starting to see, last year some people called it the year of the black quarterback, because for a while I think like the top 5 quarterbacks all were African American, had the highest QBR. You have Dak, you have Russell Wilson, you have Pat Mahomes, you have Deshaun Watson, like you have all these African American quarterbacks right now doing well. And the more we get, I think things there is it's the same thing. Now you're seeing more African Americans get drafted, but you've seen a Deshaun Watson even a couple years ago fall to pick 12, where Mitchell Trubisky goes ahead of him. You know what I mean? And like I said, but and when you're talking about all the coordinators, like all you have right now is Eric Bieniemy and Byron Leftwich. Like, where are your other representation at that spot, especially what's supposed to be an offensive league? So to me, until people's actions change and mentality change, I don't know how much changes. Yes, I'm glad they're having a conversation because it is an issue, but they're going to have to show me rather than tell me, and that's really where I am with it.
Yeah, I think this minority coaching and fellowship program has opportunity to get there, because if you look at a lot of the coordinators, a lot of them are former quarterbacks, as we spoke before. A lot of former quarterbacks aren't African American or just any other color other than white. And so I think if you do that just so you top of mind, let's just pick it out. Despite all his background, let's say Michael Vick wanted to get into coaching. He, whatever next quarterback come out of college and they have a similar skill set, now they can pick his brain. So I think it's a slow start. This elephant's gonna be eaten really slowly. So like there's opportunities, there's a conversation, but it does. It's gonna take a while.
Yeah, it's gonna take a while.
Definitely, man. But listen, right? Like I said, we'll finish wrapping that up. But lastly, I just want to really go to college football now. Vendell, I know we had spoke, and you really haven't heard much about Jim Harbaugh's proposal to college football. So I'm going to read off he penned a letter to the NCAA football committee. And I just want to get your guys' take on it. But basically, the first one, his first point reads that the individual could choose to declare for the professional draft after any season he chooses. If the player is drafted within the first 224 picks, or he chooses to sign as a free agent contract, he will forego remaining college eligibility. However, if he is drafted after 224, he will be able to return to college football if he chooses without penalty, provided he remains in academic compliance and does not receive a payment from an agent. The second one states the individual leaving college early prior to graduation who signs an NFL contract will be entitled to complete his degree either while in the NFL or return to the institution that he left to continue his college career as a student once his pro career was completed. Point 3, broadening of the rules to permit a student athlete and his family to consult with and seek advice on or before signing a professional contract from lawyers and agents, so as long as the student athlete does not receive compensation.
I like it. I think this is a great narrative. Not saying previously wasn't, but when I say this is a great narrative, you're talking about creating a bridge program to give student athletes, if you want to treat them like a student athlete, an opportunity to give themselves options. And these are tangible options. If you have an awesome freshman season, I feel bad that Maurice Claret somewhere is right now chilling saying, well, where was this when I was a freshman? But, but if you have an awesome freshman season, much like a quarterback from Clemson and
Jadeveon Clowney.
Or Jadeveon Clowney, correct, in South Carolina, right? You have an awesome freshman year. Why shouldn't you have the opportunity to say, like other sports, like basketball or baseball, hey, I think I'm good enough to play. Let's see where I can go. Let me put my toe in the water. And if an NFL team thinks that player is also good enough to, leave and they can make that money, now you've opened the door for that student athlete. You say, hey, it worked out well for me. Obviously, it worked out well for you guys in the college. I'm going to go to the next level. And then they do get drafted. You said the number was what, 224?
224.
Now that's a weird number. It's a lot of picks between first pick and 224. Mm-hmm. But I think the most important part of that is a lot of people neglect to understand that if you're not picked in the first 32 picks, the rest of that is kind of like it's a gamble because it's not guaranteed. And so that's why I like this, because you're giving a player an opportunity to say, if you're not picked in the first round, for a fact that your contract is not guaranteed. So here are your options. If you're picked in these next few rounds, are you gonna go back to school, or are you gonna actually go to that team? The problem with that is, though, like you said, a lot of players don't make these decisions. You're talking about winning the national championship, and then like within a week, you have to make a decision that's going to change your life. Do I leave or do I go back? And then you have to deal with a lot of other things. Then you have to train, and then now to say your point about you have to be eligible. Now, you're not going to go back to class, and you're going to focus on going to the draft. Now you're messing with some things. Let's say it doesn't work out, and then you want to go back to school. Well, are you eligible? How'd your last semester just go? Are you even eligible to return back or not? But to that point, I do think it's a good idea. I think that Jim Harbaugh has definitely created a good narrative here. I hope it gets some type of, especially what's going on with COVID-19 and a lot of players now losing those opportunities to go back to school. You need to maximize on some things. Having the opportunity to go to the NFL after that first successful season to maximize on getting that money quicker and earlier, I think is wonderful. Also, too, the opportunity to go back to school and to that school saying, hey, you did this for us. We're going to maintain your eligibility. Whenever you're done, you can come back and pick up those remaining years, and you can get your degree. Let's say, because if your shelf life of an average NFL player is, let's just say, 2 to 3 years. Well, that's pretty decent. It's not great, but let's say you go 5 years and then you get hurt. Now, because you left as a redshirt sophomore and you got picked in the second round, but you didn't really have a long career because of a fluke accident, now you can go back to University of Michigan and you can finish that degree to get your law degree. And now you can have a practice of your own, whereas you wouldn't have had the opportunity to do so. And then someone might say, well, they had money. Why should the school pay them, give them back their scholarship? Well, you don't know. It's a lot of money, a lot of things. That contract isn't guaranteed. Again, like I said, the wage scale and how your contract and your agent goes and how those things go as well. You may not have the means even after going to the NFL and being a professional athlete. You don't know. But that person actually earned it. They took an opportunity at school and said, hey, you deserve this, but it didn't work out for you. Come on back. We appreciate what you did for university. You have a right. You still have a right to go ahead and get this piece of paper and get this degree. I like it. I think it's great.
Yeah. Like I said, I think a lot of things he pointed out was very well written and addressed to change that need to happen. I think the NFL has always been, well, it makes sense for the NFL to be 3 years because grown man strength and people's body size and the whole nine, translate into the NFL. Well, Amobi Okoye, defensive lineman from Louisville, was drafted at the age of 19, youngest person ever drafted. He was super smart, so he actually graduated high school early, went to Louisville, was able to play 3 years and come out, I think, and had graduated in that time from college in 3 years, and then entered the draft and was drafted in the first round at the age of 19. And in his rookie season, had 5.5 sacks. Did he have the longest of careers? No. But I mean, he still played, I think, about 6 years total in the NFL. I can't remember how his career ended. What was it? Injuries? What was it? But I mean, 6 years in the NFL is still a good a good length. Like I said, it's longer than the average. So you have that. I think a lot of times these leagues, the NFL, the NBA, when they had the one and done rule implemented in college, use college as their safety net. They use these years that they're forced to play in college as basically a farm system for them, and more time for them to be able to evaluate the talent, and not pick somebody who they might have picked coming out of their freshman year, but now that they've seen them play as a sophomore and junior, they wouldn't have picked as high or at all. But these GMs get paid millions of dollars, and it's going to be up to them to really do their homework on a player to find out if there's someone who is coming out early and doesn't have a lot of film behind them, that they're worth taking in that selection. So make the money that you sign for. So that's kind of really my thing about it. The whole 224 picks is a little odd because that's like pick 10 in the 7th round or something like that. So for the first 9 picks to be able to be forced to go, but anything after that could come back was a little weird. So I think that number could be adjusted. But overall, I like this, and I also feel like obviously there will be some players that say, because of my family situation and stuff like that, I need to get to the league as fast as possible. What I think this is also going to do is maybe force the NCAA's hand from actually losing a lot of players early, and now have them come around to maybe actually some kind of payment for players in college, because now they don't want to leave. They don't want to lose their star players early to the NFL, and maybe they can keep them a little longer to keep that brand of the NCAA strong. Kamal?
Yeah, I do like that point you made about the forcing a hand on NCAA making the pay for play, because Des Bryant came really hard at Tim Tebow about Tim Tebow's criticism of that, and every family situation is very different. There are a few things I don't like about it. Overall, I do like it, but like you can go after any year. I still don't agree with that. Just because I feel like from a commitment standpoint from the player or the coach is that you just keep, like, year after year, you got someone who is, because of your family situation or just trying to live like a lifelong dream, they're year after year they're itching to get NFL, so they constantly enter their name every year. They may not be eligible, and so the coach looks at them and say, hey, look, I don't think you really committed to this program. Maybe not understanding the situation. Or you got some coaches who are very petty, and the top dog is, well, arguably the top dog, but Nick Saban is petty himself. He calls out players who don't even play for him anymore. And so we talking about somebody who lives on campus and the school pays for his housing, and he still is one of the top college coaches paid. But still, like, and a lot of times you got players who are just like side by side as far as you do have a lot of superstars player, but it's kind of like when you prepare, like you're playing for the combine, you're preparing for all these interviews. And so we're talking about a good stretch from the time you put yourself into the draft and to the draft. We're talking about a good 4 months, and that's spring ball. And so you missing a lot of off-season programs, time with your coach. And so by the time you come back, depending on the situation, depending on how good your backup is, especially like a big program like Clemson or Alabama, it really could dampen your relationship with your coach, your position coach, or just your commitment to your teammates as well. Because football is all about chemistry. It's all about that locker room. And if everyone feels like you're butting to get out of there so bad, then they may not be committed to you either. And I know I've seen it in my college in particular. When I was in school, there's a lot of athletes where they felt as though the academic advisor only did enough to keep them eligible. So I know they would say that there's some people who not graduated, but they were done with their 4 years of eligibility. However, they were still a sophomore as far as their major, because they were taking all these random classes just to keep themselves eligible. And so I think it does depend on the severity of that the school and that coach takes the academic process, or they're just trying to keep them eligible so they can win, because they make it to school a lot of money. And if they're academically ineligible, then they can help make the school money. Right. So that is I think that could possibly use 1 year. This in-year commitment could counteract the education part. So if they do come back, they do have 2 years eligibility left. They still have 4 years remaining in that particular degree. That's my quarrel with it. But other than that, I do like it because you have players like who projected to go higher, like J-Ron Curse, who plays for the Detroit Lions. He was projected at one point to go in the first round of 2016 draft, and he slid all the way to pick 244. And I'm pretty sure Clemson would have liked him back for that 2017 season. Same with Bo Scarborough. He went 236, and you got somebody, and he shared the ball. And be comparison, like he over his 3 years at Alabama, he had 267 carries. To compare that to J.K. Dobbins, who got drafted last year, he had 301 carries last year.
Right.
And so you got people who are just making decisions, and granted, at home decisions factor in a lot. But who could probably come back another year and increase their draft stock and get more money. So there's a lot that goes into this. For me personally, I don't like the go after any year thing. But for the most part, I mean, I think it's phenomenal to set people up for the future, especially people who don't know how to manage their money and blow through their contract. And then when they get done, like Trent Richardson, that you can't tell anybody no, and everyone's taking your money, and you don't have any money yourself, and you're the one playing for it.
Right. Like I said, I mean, to your point about not liking, them being able to go any year. When you mentioned, you fear some of the players now are only in college. Their advisors are making sure that they're eligible. They're not making sure that they're on pace to graduate in 4 years. So my thing is, if a player could actually leave out after a sophomore year and go to the league, but still actually have two years that the school will pay for after that time. Now, when he goes back for those 2 years, you best believe those 2 years are going to be now done in the right way. Whereas if he had to come back his junior year, would he still be in that same situation as far as where he is in his major?
That's a good point.
If he would have came back, if we would have been forced to come back, would he be anywhere further along in his major, or would he just be somewhere eligible because they want him to make sure that he can focus the most on the upcoming season and he doesn't have a tough course or whatever it may be? So I feel if you're gonna have the word student athlete in there, the first thing that needs to happen is that you make the education a priority, and that's not happening already as it is. So give these student athletes a chance to help better themselves. And I think if someone is going to, I don't think you're going to have that many players choosing to leave after a freshman year, and also with the ability to actually get advice, get counseling before you make a decision, and to be able to have that option where you don't have it now. You can talk to family members, but you can't get professional counseling and advice besides from talking to your coach. Like, yeah. I think those type of things also help a player from making a decision, and maybe, that freshman saying, all right, I will come back for my sophomore year. I will come back as well for my junior year because of where I'm projected to go and all the risk and everything about it, then I'm just going to stay here in college. Or, do you want to risk injury and wipe your chances of going to the league ever again because you blew your knee out, your sophomore, junior year. So you have all those things, like I said, that it weighs, and these are the only professions where you can't go pro when you want to, when you're of legal age. Where any you can go to the Army at 18, but you can't go pro in the NFL. So it's just crazy to me. Like I said, the way some of it is, and as far as coaches being petty, that stuff's going to happen. I think you're going to see some of that as well with players entering transfer protocol, and as soon as maybe a player, considering it, that player may be getting in the coach's doghouse, or a player saying, all right, it's the end of my freshman year, I'm going to go to the draft, not getting drafted and coming back. If that coach is now being petty to that player and not playing him, but he was just all conference his freshman year, that coach is going to have a difficult time recruiting when he goes in to this next high school player's house to talk to the high school player and the parents. Tell me about why so-and-so who just started for you every game his freshman year, made all conference, tried to take his shot at the league, didn't get drafted. Now he comes back and now he's fifth on your depth chart in a position, but you want my kid to go there and tell me you have his best interest at heart? Like, you got to explain that. You got to explain that. And There will be coaches that will be able to talk around it, but there's going to be other coaches that are going to come in and use that against that coach and maybe get that and maybe sway a recruit's decision on where they go. So coaches will be petty, but that can only affect them in the long run. Coaches use everything they can when recruiting against other coaches. I mean, every year people go to Michigan's recruits and tell them Harbaugh's looking at another NFL job. That's like they throw lies around. So imagine a coach that has now benched a player that decided, can I take my shot at going to the draft?
Well, if you look at as far as recruitment, I think for the past 3 years, Georgia has had a number one quarterback recruit every single year. And so I think when it comes to recruitment, they're all like these big programs are always backlogged with huge talent. You look at Alabama, they're running back year after year after year. They have like the best running backs. And so we look at like football factories constantly. I think they could probably look the same.
But when Alabama is putting a running back or two in the NFL every year, and if I get there and I just get one season in Alabama, I know I can make it to the league. I don't have to play 3 years, and I'm probably going to be limiting my carries. That means I'm going to be limiting my wear and tear on me. So NFL teams are really going to look at me, and like that I have low tread on my tires. But
it can be both Scarborough.
I mean, listen, and a lot of these GMs miss picks all the time. I mean, we can talk about people who go undrafted at all, and then and then going to have great careers.
Look at the running back in San Diego.
Yeah, so I mean, Philip Lindsay,
Denver Broncos,
in Denver. Yeah. So you always have situations like that, but that's easier to explain if I'm pumping out players. And I'm coming to you and I tell you got to sit behind somebody. That's easy to do because I'm showing you I can get players to the league. But now if I come and I say I had a player that wanted to go to the league and I didn't want him to go, he chose to go anyway, didn't get drafted, and now he tried to come back and play for me, and I said, yeah, you can ride the bench. Like that's
they ain't gonna say that in recruitment.
No. You're not gonna say that in recruitment, but
your actions are.
But you put that player on the bench. How do you then now? Answer that when you go to recruit. I'm not saying that you still can't say, well, I still put X, Y, Z in the league and the whole nine, and you have players. I'm sure those coaches probably throw those players under the bus, whatever it is. But as a high school recruit, how do you look at that situation? All I'm saying is that will be something that could factor negatively against those coaches if that were to go down that way. That's just impossible. I'm not saying that it's the end all be all. They're not going to go from, Alabama's not going to go from being a number one recruit to being out of the top 25. But if it sways 4 or 5 star recruits to Clemson or LSU, was that enough? You know what I mean? So that's all I'm saying.
No, I feel it. I think to this point, and I just want to insert this part. If this does become the norm, if this was to be something of this type of pattern, I think like somebody like Coach Calipari could do like a symposium of how to adjust to the one and done or two and done. As he says, when he does it, his coaching, his recruitment does not stop when you sign with me. It stops when we get you to the stage and you get that draft pick. That's why he's always there. And I think that will be the kind of coaching or recruitment style that would happen would be, hey, I know why you want to come here. We want to get you money. I'm not going to hide that. You don't want to hide that. I think that transparency would change, and I think that's what the recruitment high would have to be. But to your point, Brad, I think that's a good point. Yeah, directly how you react and respond to players who do not come back, do not get picked, and one blood sword, right? How can I go and continue to recruit if I don't know what's going to happen? But Coach Cal and other coaches now who do the one and done in college basketball, they do it all the time. They do it throughout the year. They have one and dones on their roster, and on those Saturdays, they're going out and they're picking people, and they don't know who's going to come back or not, and they have to do it too. So I think again, to that point, that style is going to change if that would be the case, and I think that would be interesting. That would be an interesting type of narrative for a head coach towards players they're recruiting and the ones that are there and who would have to test those waters and come back. But yeah, I think it's. Like I say, stuff like this is good banter. I like this. This is pretty good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not something that has to iron out because, like, to your point, you then start to play with the whole scholarship and player on scholarship, because if you offer somebody one expecting someone to go to the league and then they're coming back, now what do you do? Because now you've already filled that position. So how does the NCAA handle those things? Do they delay the National Signing Day in high school? Like, what are the different things? So there's a lot of ways. There's a lot of points obviously that have to be ironed out. But overall, I like what was presented by Harbaugh to the NCAA football committee, and I hope some kind of change comes about. Maybe not everything that he put out, maybe not right away, but that there is some kind of change to that puts these student athletes first. But that wraps up this episode of Next Possession Sports. Appreciate you guys stopping by. Kamal and Dell.
See y'all. We'll see you.